There is absolutely no way I will be able to transmit how awesome God was the other day. I'm going to try in this story to explain to you how infinitely amazing God was and how much He moved. But I want you to know this was one of the most tremendous experiences of my life. And it's not going to transmit through this story, though I'm going to try my best to present it. So, the insurance company that we have that is supposed to cover our repair bills and whatnot on our teeth, my wife went in for some routine maintenance, and one of her teeth she's got really bad teeth, and one tooth was just in terrible shape, and so the dentist did a root canal and put a crown on it, and then was going to send out a request to go ahead and do a root canal and a crown of the other tooth. And the insurance company just denied it. And they said, if you want to appeal this, you can. And we're like, well, yeah, we'd like to appeal that. I mean, it's dental insurance and, you're supposed to cover this. So why aren't you? And it's in need. Like, why would you not cover this? And they're like, oh, and the result was that this claim is denied. And, basically, I think the alternative was you could pull the tooth. And I've had a tooth pulled, and it's just that really messes with your self-esteem, and it also does something with the longevity of your health, and so there's several things like that, and it's problematic. Man, there's so many. I'm trying to express some emotion here, and I just can't capture it all. And I apologize for not being prepared to do that. But so my wife, I didn't want her to have her tooth pulled, and so I was like, yeah, we're going to appeal this thing. And the insurance company got offended by that and was like, well, there's going to be a court hearing. You're like, they immediately turn it over. You're going to be speaking to a judge. And we're like, it's like, okay, you're the one that said that we could appeal it if we wanted to, but now it's a court case. And okay, if that's the way you want to deal with this, great. And really didn't put a lot of stock into this. Then as time progressed, I found out that it was going to be a over-the-phone court hearing type of scenario. Okay, no big deal, I thought. And then some paperwork came in that said, you're going to have to present your case. And so I was like, well, we're going to have to, study this a little bit and find out more. So to be very clear, the insurance company had dealt with one tooth, but was unwilling to do the same exact thing for the other tooth. And I'm just like, man, we're not going to do that. So with all of that, we're supposed to, like I said, build a case. And so I did a little bit of research on the matter, and I was, kind of prepping myself. I was like, yeah, I'm learning new terms like periapal, is that right? Yeah. And then gingival, and then periodontal. And I was going to use these things and their definitions and try to weave this, case making. It's like, you did it for this other tooth. Why didn't you do it for this? And I think the doctor or the dentist that did this misdiagnosed the claim. And that was going to be my angle. I was like, I think it's just a simple case of misdiagnosis. Like, I think there is a remedy to this. It was my angle, but nonetheless. I studied a little bit, studied a few hours on this, and still absolutely not prepared for what was about to come. So we get this phone call as family is visiting, and the phone call came. Now, we did have heads up that we needed to be ready for a phone call. So we were ready for the phone call. But the phone call came at 12:30, which I think is a very odd time. It almost seemed staged, like who would really answer during lunch? I think it was actually intended for us not to answer that phone call, but we did, and I answered. And I was immediately told that I could not talk, that it had to be my wife. And I was like, well, you've called my phone, but okay, I'll get my wife on the line, because I knew this was about the court hearing. So I take the phone to my wife, and she immediately begins to talk on the phone, and the lawyer instantly, and I think he might have already been on the phone with the judge. I think everything was set up except for the call coming to our house to connect us to the whole shebang, to this teleconference courtroom. And immediately my wife gets in trouble for the background noise being too loud. And she's like, you called right during the middle of lunch. And okay. And so she takes off running to to our bedroom, and I follow her because I, obviously want to be engaged in this and want to know what's going on. And plus, I was the one that had been studying, so I was wanting to present our case. And we go in there, lock the door, it gets a little quieter. But I could hear the judge's voice as she was reprimanding my wife on the phone like a little child. Now, you can probably tell by my looks here, but I'm 48 and I'm not immature and I'm not a troublemaker, and neither is my wife. We're actually very respectful human beings and love to get along with people. And my wife is getting reprimanded like a child for the background noise being too noisy. And I was like, okay. So as things began to progress and we find out this is the court hearing, this is just like a courtroom, you can have a lawyer present if you want, and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, this is a big deal. Like, we knew it, but now we're in it and it's really a big deal. And they're asking again, do you want a lawyer? Like, not really. Like, we are Christians and we don't like lawsuits and all this kind of stuff. But you said this is the way to appeal, to actually get the process done. So that's what we're trying to do. And all of a sudden it's like, do you want a lawyer? And Mark's like, no, I don't really want a lawyer. And then I try to speak up and say something, and I get chastised by the judge. And she makes it very clear that I've spoken out of turn. She is only talking to my wife. That is, that I will just keep my mouth shut, and that it's only my wife that can speak. And then she begins to tell more about the process. And so now, this is the second time my wife and I, maybe the third time that my wife and I have gotten in trouble on this phone call, and we're just troublemakers. Like this, wow. And so I'm standing there, I'm trying to keep my peace, but now knowing that maybe we're supposed to have a lawyer, and I even thought about, let's just hang up and be done with this and let the pieces fall where they may. But do you hang up on a judge and a lawyer, and should you do that? And I don't know. So, being involved in this, my emotions, my adrenaline started rising. And I can debate with anyone. I can think on my feet. But if it's in an area that I'm not polished in, I struggle. I struggle. Just like now when I struggle with the camera, it's like I can't completely find the right words, and I know that I'm going to come across like an idiot, and if I start thinking that I might come across like an idiot, then I act more like an idiot, and the cycle repeats, and pretty soon I am an idiot, just plain and simple. So I'm standing there, and my emotions are heightening, and it's getting more tense, and, it's like, now we have denied legal help. Oh, man, now we're really in the thick of things. And all of this is, being recorded, and etc. So then, as it progresses, my wife asked for permission for me to present the case, and I said I wanted to, and the judge said that will be fine. Is this, the husband? I was like, absolutely, yeah. This is me, and I will be speaking from this point forward. She goes, great. This is your testimony alone, only you. I'm like, okay. Great. And I'm like a little kid that's been reprimanded and set in a corner, like I can't speak up, but now I've been kind of given permission to actually talk and engage. And so we're going through this, and I was like, can I ask the doctor some questions? Like, no, that's out of turn. You can't talk until I tell you that you can talk. So I got in trouble again. I was like, oh, okay, because I just want to kind of know why we're being denied this claim, and we weren't really told that. So anyway, I was like, the judge said, do you want to make an opening statement? And the other lawyer goes off on this extravagant, TV-polished opening statement about tooth 24 from x-ray 65 that was looked at by this dentist of this many years through this corporation following this protocol, etc. And I realized how ill-equipped I was at this point to move forwards. And so I just kind of sat and waited. And then as he's done with this procedure, it's like, basically we've done nothing wrong. We've denied this claim because of these reasons. So the judge says, do you want to make an opening statement? You don't have to. And it was funny that she was like, you don't have to. You don't have to make this opening statement, but if you want to. And I've been reprimanded 3 or 4 times already. I was like, well, I do. And in short, we want our I want my wife's tooth fixed because, that's what insurance does. Very simple. And it was almost as bad as this video was turning out. I'll just tell you, that's how bad it was. And so then as the lawyer was then given free rein to present his side, he's like, I bring in professional testimony, Dr. So-and-so, the dentist, etc. And he is going to lay all this out for us. And this dentist made sure he's like, I didn't do the claim. It was a colleague of mine. But here are the reasons that these things are denied and why they are denied. And then he said, sometimes they just cost too much, and so they're, just denied. Well, then he began to elaborate a little more. And the circumstances began to drift and change, and he began to talk a lot, and he became very comfortable with his status and with his explanation. And so the lawyer's like, so tell us again why this tooth cannot be repaired. He's like, well, it's for this reason. Like maybe the pulp goes below the cavity line and this, that, and the other. And he said, it just can't, the tooth probably won't last 5 years. But he goes, again, I didn't make this decision, somebody else did. And they deny it because of cost basis. And so then as we're continuing to go along, the dentist, it makes a statement at some point. He's like, yeah, this thing could use a root canal. And you could hear in the lawyer's voice that he was kind of miffed. He was like, whoa, let's re-clarify this point there. So you're saying that the tooth needs a root canal? And he's like, yeah, the tooth needs a root canal. And I'm going to tell you all the back story on this, all the momentum. I was so hyped and I was so ill prepared. We were so caught in the crossfire. We were being reprimanded like children. We were being steamrailed by a lawyer, by a judge, and by a professional. And then all of a sudden, this dentist states, and I don't know if he slips up or says it on purpose. I don't know exactly, but he's like, this needs a root canal. I think what was happening is he was actually, and something else that was against us, is they had access to pictures. All of them had, and were viewing pictures of this tooth, and we were just told by phone. I'm like, that's really crazy that we didn't have access to that. Like, I'm telling you, this thing was very one-sided. It was supposed to be a railroad job. And the dentist then mentions that it needed a root canal. And I looked at my wife and I thought, we've just won this. Like, I think we actually, when we get our chance to speak back, that we can mention that he just said it needs a root canal, but y'all denied it and said this tooth had to be pulled. And so then the lawyer's like, well, so you're saying it needs a root canal. He's like, yeah. He's like, well, we withdraw the denial of the root canal. Well, then moments after this, so he's like, so what you're saying is it could have a root canal, but it doesn't necessarily have to have the crown. This is what the lawyer says to the dentist. And the dentist was like, yeah, but then as he's beginning to talk, and he talks a little further, he said, yeah, the colleague made this decision. I didn't make this decision. And yeah, with the root canal, you put a crown on there. And so the lawyer, again, is like, for clarification, so you're saying with the root canal, it needs a crown. And you should have heard them. They were caught in the thicket. I don't know if the dentist meant to say that. I don't know why the lawyer was drawing these clarifying marks. I know as a lawyer, I would have never went back if there was a point struck against me and highlight it and then do it again. I would never do such. But this guy all of a sudden was doing so. And the dentist's like, yeah, it needs a root canal and a crown. And at that point, the judge interrupted everything and said, hey, do y'all still live at this address? I'm like, we do. It's like, she said, I'm sending out a court order today that your insurance company pay for all of the dental on this matter. And that was that. And then the lawyer stayed on the line and said, yeah, let me confirm, that we're sending this to you. And it was done. This started out with my wife and I being little children who were reprimanded, who were troublemakers, who were trying to buck the system. We didn't set the court hearing up. We didn't want to engage in this fashion. We didn't even want a lawyer. We were just saying, hey, we'd rather have her tooth fixed if it can be fixed. If it can be fixed, we'd rather have it fixed than to pull her tooth. That's the only thing we're actually discussing here. And y'all said we could appeal it, so we are appealing it. It was on your terms. But the judge was against us, again, reprimanding us. The lawyer was against us, and the dentist was supposed to be against us. And you could feel the emotion and the weight and the tension. My wife and I were both under strain of this the whole time. And then it turns around on the root canal part. I could tell it was turning around. And then by the end of it, they're putting a crown on this thing as well. They are repairing our wife's tooth. When we hung up the phone, my wife and I sat there in tears laughing. Yeah, tears laughing. It was crazy because when do things like this happen? I have seen people change their tune in an argument, but rarely. And never have I seen three people that were in a tide against you and strategized against you all turn their tune in a matter of a few moments and all become your advocate. The dentist became our advocate. The lawyer became our advocate. The judge became our advocate. And they did everything incredibly fast. And I literally sat down with my wife in shock. We have been asking, or I have been asking in prayer, God, we'd like to see you move. We want to see you move. I've prayed about a lot of things in my life, but now I'm at the point where I just want to see you move. And I'm going to tell you, I've never experienced anything quite like that. And as we came out of that room, sharing this experience with others, and now even me sharing this with you, my wife said, this gives me a whole new meaning to if God is for you, then who can be against you? Take hope when you're squaring off against your enemies in this world, and know that if God is for you, there is nobody who can be against you, and your enemies might actually turn out to be your advocates.